All right, Bri, you got to be honest with me here. Did you think Team USA had a chance to lose today's ball game?
100%.
You did. You thought they were going to lose, possibly.
I thought possibly. I mean, when you're down 17, like how did those thoughts not come to your mind? Even in the fourth quarter, there were moments where I was like, "Oh goodness." So, yeah, I mean, I think it just goes to show that single game elimination, where the world isn't necessarily closing the talent gap, but like ever so slightly, the world just continues to get better as each Olympics passes by. That I even said on my pod yesterday that, knock on wood, I thought the Americans had it in the bag all the way through. And I still do think they do. But I think 2028, like, I feel like we should talk about that because we'll see.
The problem with 2028 is
We got the home whistle, though.
we just don't know what, like, as far as young players, like who is the Anthony Edwards in 2028, who's a top draft pick and who is in his third or fourth season and who's on the Olympic team. Like there are people who might be in high school right now who could possibly be on that team. And same with
I don't know. Well, you talk about 4 years from now, 2028. We're already almost in 2025. Anthony Edwards is what, in year 4? So I mean, you're right. Like that player would still be a senior in high school, and I could already tell you right now that the seniors in high school is Cameron Boozer, Carlos Boozer's son, is going to be a top draft pick, as well as that guy I sent you like last year. His name's AJ DeBonsta. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. Those two are like the two top recruits as high schoolers right now. But I'm not counting the Cooper Flag class because I already count those guys in college. But yeah, I mean, Anthony Edwards and Tyrese Halliburton, same draft class of 2020. So that was the last Olympics. And then now in year 4, they're at the end of year 4, going into year 5, they're in the Olympics. So yeah, you're right. Like there's still talent that we don't totally know. But I think we can say for certain is, the 3 best players of my generation, my era of watching basketball, Stephen Curry, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant. I think we could confidently say that, like, they're not going to have 3 of those guys in 2028. Yeah. Maybe one of them.
I bet you Durant still plays. Unless he gets hurt.
40?
But his game is so perfect for.
Will he be 40 years old?
Is he older than Steph or Steph older than him?
Same age.
Yeah, so they'll probably both be 40.
I don't know if he's playing. I don't know.
Look, you can just have him come in and hit mid ranges, and he's going to be fine. Like,
yeah, but he's not. But okay, I see what you're saying.
He's so tall.
But he's not going to be Kevin Durant in 2028. He's going to be a lesser version of that. It's not going to be as active. It's going to be like kind of what you're saying. Like, you're not going to start, but you're going to come in and hit a few shots. But like, not Kevin.
Well,
Durant.
I mean, look, they didn't want him to start now. They wanted him to run that second team, and he had to play like way more than I'm sure that they thought because he's still that good. But okay, so you know what 2028 is going to be? The revenge of Jason Tatum is what 2028 is going to be.
Yeah, should we start riffing off of who we think is going to be on that team? Because like, what, Anthony Davis is 32 years old right now. So 36-year-old Anthony Davis with all the injury stuff, do you think he would make it? That's what I'm thinking too. So we're talking about like Ja and Zion. And of course, like, this is not even counting the players that are playing right now. Like, Bam will probably play. Tatum will probably play. Anthony Edwards, Halliburton will probably play. Maybe Derek White. Jaylen Brown, who missed it, could probably play. Talking about like Donovan Mitchell, Cooper Flag, Jalen Brunson. Like, we're still going to have a stacked Paolo Banchero. We're still going to have a stacked team. I think my worry is just that, we've always been able to overpower other countries because of the star power, and it's not necessarily relied on like the chemistry that some of these other countries have, that they play with each other for the entire season, or in Jokic's case and Bogdanovic's case, it's like they played with these guys like growing up. I don't know like the full detailed approach of how it works. Like, if they were, I don't know, like the AAU scene is overseas, if they were really like all playing in this maybe under 16 Olympic squad their entire lives, but it seems like they're quite familiar with each other, all the countries except for, the US, and in some cases I feel like Canada runs into that as well. But I feel like these, as the world starts to slightly close the gap in terms of talent, I feel like that chemistry, and then the FIBA advantage of being of knowing how to play in FIBA because it's different rules. And I feel like LeBron and AD showed a couple times, but we don't do it as much as just knocking it out of the rim. Like the goaltend in the US in the NBA is not as enforced as it's not enforced in terms of if it's still like rolling around, right?
I like the FIBA rules better than the NBA rules.
I do too.
The problem is that the games go by too fast because they swallow their whistles for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but I like that. It makes it a lot easier to watch it on replay. It goes a lot quicker. You can get it done in like an hour and a half to under an hour. So I
know, but the TV stations, the networks kind of run the sports leagues, and they wouldn't like that because they wouldn't have as much time.
Also, it's completely different, completely random, but these single elimination stuff, just so much more stakes, NFL style, so much more entertaining. They would never do that in the NBA because more playoff games, more revenue.
More games, yeah.
But man, that would be awesome. That's why I think the play-ins are so fun sometimes.
I guess I would say the big question for 2028, who's going to be the best American player in 2028? Because
Anthony Edwards, I guess.
This team needed Steph and LeBron and KD on the court, either all at once or, two at the same time in this game, because when they weren't, there was nothing happening offensively. It was just like, oh, what are we supposed to do now? And so they needed that direction. They needed that closer action by all of those guys. Like, who's going to take this shot? Like, it's so funny. You watch the NBA and in the playoffs, I mean, even last year, like Anthony Edwards is like a wrecking machine in these playoffs, right? Where it's just like, he's just coming out of nowhere and he's playing and just killing these defenses. And yet in this game, I don't know if he didn't, I can't imagine he sort of didn't understand the importance or didn't feel the importance. Maybe his personality is a little casual when it comes to that. But it was almost like Serbia was like, okay, this game is win or die. And Anthony Edwards was just like, this is a normal basketball game. Because he got caught in some opportunities or situations where I was just like, this dude needs to like treat this game seriously, or you need to take him out. And Kerr just eventually took him out because he couldn't really do anything. And
if I have a critique on Kerr's like approach to today, like he ended up getting the win, and I feel like he finally found a lineup that, maybe it's matchup specific in that closing lineup, or we'll see when it comes to the France game. But it sounds like he found a lineup that was like really good and really worked together. But the critique I have is how long he let Anthony Edwards play. We said it in our chat. The guy was gambling on steals, putting himself out of position, putting his team out of position defensively. And then he takes 2 corner threes. I think he gets like maybe an early sub into the starting unit, not a hockey sub where he comes in with the entire bench unit. So he's not necessarily the Anthony Edwards initiator, misses 2 corner threes. And then they put the subs in, and now he's back to Anthony Edwards initiator. And he didn't want the ball. He was like, and especially in that second half,
turnovers spooked him too.
They spooked him.
He turned the ball over because he's just playing casually, and these guys are playing hard. They're playing physical. Like, it was almost like he didn't understand what this was going to be like. Which, okay, like that happens. Like, he's, it's a different game for him, and hopefully he'll have a much better game on Saturday, because I think Kerr, like you said, Kerr's going to give him a little bit of a leash because he understands the personality of these players probably better than just about any coach. I don't know about the history of the NBA, but when you play with Michael Jordan and you play with Tim Duncan, you know a lot about how some of these guys are driven, and I think he understands that probably more so than anybody else. And so he probably does have a longer leash on certain guys. But at the same time, now, if you want to be critical, I'm sure Boston Celtics fans are pretty critical on the fact that Tatum doesn't even get off the floor in a game where Anthony Edwards is not playing well. An easy sub is to just bring Tatum.
That's what I was saying, and I don't know if it was in your chat or another, but that's the Tatum sub right there. And I was shocked that it didn't happen, because Anthony Edwards, like, I'm putting a lot of blame on him with the second unit, because he's such a, like, he was doing what I wanted Steph to do. It's like, I don't give a F Kevin Durant or LeBron. Like, I'm stepping on toes. I'm doing my thing. which Steph finally did today, but it was in the flow of the offense and everything was great. But Anthony Edwards became like almost like made himself. It's kind of like his personality that we've seen throughout is like, you ever see those clips where Carmelo Anthony would like go for rebounds and he'd say
Get
like,
the F out of here or
yeah,
whatever.
I got it. Get the F out of here. Like, that's just like Anthony Edwards. Like, get the F out of here. This is my show. And when he's not doing that, what happened today is he wasn't doing that. So he would hide in the corner, and then you'd have Derek White or Bam Adebayo with the ball in their hands too much. And it's not their fault. It's just like, he doesn't want it. What are we supposed to do? And then you get Kevin Durant with 5 seconds left on the shot clock. That's usually good, but I think they could sense that that was happening. So it was easy to crowd him. So
yeah,
you could do what
stuff where guys are just dropping the basketball too. It's like,
yeah,
it was unexpected. And I'm not saying that, the moment or whatever, but I mean, the game is different. These stakes are way different. Like you said, it's one game elimination, and you don't want to be the biggest upset maybe in the history of Olympic basketball. You don't want to be on that side, but that's kind of also why you came there. And for Bam, I thought it was his worst game. AD's been there. AD knows what it's like, but I don't think he played very well.
He didn't. He just the Jokic that he was. I think there's a level of physicality that he plays against Jokic in the NBA that they were kind of blowing the whistle earlier in FIBA. He picked up 3 quick fouls, like I think 2 in the first half, 1 right into the third quarter when they did the Embiid sub, and then he was basically out for the rest of it until
Wade.
Like the very end.
Wade was kind of like, I think Wade was insinuating that Jokic is able to get away with being a little bit more physical because of his stature as a 2-time MVP. And yeah, maybe, but also like he's not he's standing still and using his shoulders, which seems like those FIBA refs are okay. But the second you put your hand out there and you start doing that, then they're so quick to call the foul.
Yeah, but, there were some calls that I thought were definitely favoring Serbia to start the game, but as we got towards, I think there was like a few that I felt like favored us, and in my head I'm like, oh, this is such a favoring Serbia ref call game, and then of course I'm like blindly ignoring some of the stuff that goes for us. But I will say that Dwayne Wade I thought was really good on the mic, and then I was like, oh, he's like very like home team, he's like pretty biased.
Did you hear in the first Olympic game that he did, actually it may have even been in one of the friendlies, he basically told Noah Eagle, he's like, keep me in line because I'm going to want to say we and us just instinctively. And he had to catch himself like 2 or 3 times today. He was like, I mean Team USA. So yeah. But okay, so here's a question. This is what I forgot to bring this up last time, but Noah Eagle, he does both sides. He does the men's and the women's. D Wade is the color commentator for the men's side, and LaChina Robinson is the color commentator for the women's side. Now, if you read Twitter, if you read like a lot of the sports media blogs, everyone loves D Wade because D Wade is charming. He's famous. He's fun. And as a broadcaster, I think LaChina Robinson is way better than he is, but she didn't win 3 NBA titles and all that because she knows that team and she knows the opposition very well. Like, she's giving you insight about the team and who's playing with who and who is on the other side. And, just these little, just small pieces of information that are very helpful if you're someone like me, kind of new to the women's side in the way that we like to cover. Like, I've watched women's basketball a lot, but not to this insight of what I want to just keep learning and learning and learning. And on the other end, like D Wade, I'll give him one piece of credit today because it's the same thing that I was pulling my hair about. They have 2 bigs. Well, they have 2 bigs. LeBron starts guarding Jokic, and which leaves Embiid to guard whomever that other guy was. He wasn't very good.
He was just big and a good rebounder.
Yeah, just a big dude. So what happens is you go, the mentality is like, okay, LeBron is doing all of this work to keep Jokic out of the middle, and ball goes up. And so it's like, okay, Joel Embiid, like, great rebounder. We're going to get this and we're going to run on the other side. I want to say it was like 4 consecutive shots went up,
3.
and this dude missed the rebound every single time. And I was like, I don't understand what he thinks he's there for in this moment. That's the whole reason you have LeBron guarding Jokic. And D Wade said it. He's like, look, if we're going to do that, then Embiid has to get every rebound, not just one, not just two. He's got to get every single one.
Yeah.
And so that drove me nuts. Like, I don't know how 76ers fans do it. Embiid offensively is so gifted and so skilled, but sometimes, man, I was watching this guy going like, how do you guys deal with it, 76ers fans? He's great on one end, and then he looks terrible, and then he looks like he doesn't care, and then he doesn't try hard, and then he dribbles the ball off his foot, and I'm just like going like, come on, dude, this moment is built for you. But he did hit some shots in the fourth. It
was his best game, him and Steph's best game, and you could still like see like the fault. That rebounding thing was driving me nuts too. My Dwayne Wade thing, where it's like I think something and then Dwayne Wade says it, and then I feel like more affirmed in my thought, is that I think Jokic, they were like shadowing Jokic when he was at like the top of the perimeter. It wasn't necessarily sending a double every time, but they were at least like, you know, people who weren't guarding Jokic were like a little closer to him at the
paying
top of
very close attention to what he was doing.
So there was so many wide open threes that were just late contests. And it was like, we don't have to do this at the top of the key. Like, let's do this more when he's got his back turned and he's, you know, dribbling into the paint. But that's what makes him so good, is that doesn't really phase him. But still, like, even doing that, like, he doesn't warrant, you know, he does, but in this game where we're getting killed by it, like, I'm surprised they didn't stop. Like, even in like the third or fourth quarter, like Devin Booker's still doing it and he's like shadowing him. And then, you know, you off of Bogdanovich of all people, and you just get burned. So
that was driving me nuts too. Yeah. And this is a Jokic. Did he hit a 3-pointer? He took a bunch. I don't think he hit a deep shot. One. And so I don't know what they were paying attention to, if they thought they needed to help on his drive. But you're just playing into his hands. It's not like these guys don't play against this guy every single year. So that was very frustrating, because I thought the same thing as you. Let's let him go one-on-one and you know, let's believe that we have the guy that can do it. Because even when Devin Booker is like switched off to him, which D Wade had another good comment. I started this thinking, you know, saying D Wade wasn't good, but he actually did have a really good game today. He said, you know, Devin Booker, you need to fight over the screen a little bit more rather than just accept the switch because of who you're being switched on to. Because he gets switched on to Jokic, immediately fouls, and then
to push back a little on that. I guess I didn't hear him say that, but my defense for Devin Booker is, look who was behind him that is playing 5 feet behind. It's Embiid, who's playing super drop. So it's like Booker's like, okay, like, are you gonna, you know, it was just like some confusion of Embiid was so far back, and Booker's like, okay, are we really just about to leave this guy wide open on a pick and pop? So I guess I have to switch or something. Like, some of it was he was switching too easily and not fighting over enough. But I think another aspect of it was Embiid's just not playing high enough for them to maybe not switch and do that easier. But it's just playing drop, I guess, is
so, you know, we're kind of burying the lead here, which is that Team USA comes all the way back. I think they were down 17, which was the biggest lead to Serbia. Now, this is a team that they've already played 2 times. And like I said, Serbia came out, their guards came out like this was win or die. Like, the guard, Bogdanovich played great. Bogdanovich was so fired up the whole game. There was who was the little lefty? Their lefty shooter was money all game long. Was that the guy that was talking trash to Carmelo the whole game?
No, I thought that was Bogey.
Maybe that was Bogdanovich, but because Carmelo's sitting there in the front row, and I'm assuming he's also going back and forth a little bit. You know, Melo doesn't shy away from talk. But this team was so fired up, so much so that I think LeBron and Steph really had to kind of go, oh, we're going to actually have to play our A-level games to beat these guys. And to actually get LeBron and Steph to think about the game in that way, because the first time I thought, okay, LeBron really knows what's going on here. Like, he feels the moment. He dribbled the ball up the court, dribbled to the right side of the court, and just backed down whoever was guarding him and just went to the free throw line. I was like, okay, he can literally do that every single possession if he wants. But that was his statement going like, okay, we need to take this game seriously. Steph was on fire from the beginning, and his you could tell some of it was like, for him, it was like finally, but also I thought he knew that his emotion needed to sort of channel through the team, because once he started shooting, you see the bench just start going crazy. You see LeBron and KD going crazy, and that kind of fired them up as well. Now it didn't stop them from, the defensive lapses that we saw, especially around the perimeter. Like that, just the incredible, like, just there were moments where, they're playing the defense, and the ball's getting swung around, and someone who's near the post has got to go out to a shooter, knowing that the second he goes out to the shooter, they swing it to the corner and there's nobody there. Yeah. Like the rotations were so bad in some instances. But anyway, I think those guys really figured out probably by the second quarter that this was the moment and they had to be great, or else Team USA might not win. Now, KD struggled in the first half a little bit, but in the fourth quarter, he was exactly what you wanted him to be. Money, going ISO. Everyone knew what was going to happen. It's like, stop it. Try and stop it. KD's gonna he's gonna drive. He's gonna go right. He's gonna pull up. Stop it if you can. And he was just money. So it was really awesome to see the great players on this team step up in that moment when they needed to.
I think it's more specifically like the three: LeBron, Steph, and KD. Like that's who everyone wanted. I've been waiting for like the extended playing time that those three would get to play together, and today was the game, and it was so fun to watch. It was also very nerve-wracking, but that was probably one of my favorite basketball watching experiences. Probably goes up there in like the top 5 to top 10. Just seeing all three of those guys like be awesome when we needed them to.
Has there been anybody on men's team who has surprised you? Like, because we mentioned this last time where I was like, man, Bam is way better than I realized. Is there anybody else who you felt is like, okay, like this person is a much more well-rounded basketball player than I ever realized watching him play in the NBA?
I think watching Devin Booker be able to kind of accept the role, like I think I've been very impressed by Booker. Like that unit that they rolled out at the end, like my expectation was that it was going to be a Drew or a Derek White for the defense, but they kept Booker in and he hit that 3-pointer at the end that was like very needed. And then just playing solid, maybe not great Drew D White defense, but solid enough defense that was their best lineup. And Steph, Booker, KD, Braun, and Embiid. Like, do you think they start with that next game, or do you think, I feel like Kerr always finds like his best 5, and he's like, okay, we'll save that for the third quarter.
Yeah,
do you think KD will finally start?
No, I don't think so. I think he's going to play probably the same exact way, but I think what he'll do is, now here's an interesting question, because France, they played Germany today. I thought, watching up until halftime, I was like, Germany's better. France is a really good story. And then France just kind of pulls away in the second half. And I was really surprised at how they did it. It's going to be a raucous crowd, right? It's going to be insane when they play. But I feel like this will be more similar to the second Serbia game, where they're playing pretty much even for the first quarter, and I'm watching both teams going like, man, both of these teams are really good. And then eventually Team USA kind of figures things out and they stretch the lead out. I think that game is going to be a little bit more like that. The Wemby thing is going to be so fun to watch, though, because he himself, he understands that moment. Like you see him almost, now some of it is he's just not successful at it, but sometimes he's like, I'm just bombing this 3 because the crowd can't wait to see me make this, and then they're gonna explode. But I just don't think they're as I don't think they're as talented as these other teams. But I didn't think Serbia was as talented either. They just have. I guess what Serbia has is these really sort of grizzled, savvy vets who knew that they had to play some great basketball, and they did. They were excellent today. I don't know if I saw that same thing from France in the morning game, though.
Yeah, I mean, I only caught the fourth quarter, and it felt like Germany was the better team in the fourth. A few silly turnovers that, unfortunately, Franz gets like the much needed rebound and then just like falls out of bounds. But yeah, no, I think we win. I don't know if I have a game to compare it to because I don't want to really downplay the gold medal game just yet. Not saying you are, but because it's tough because I feel like they found their best lineup, which they've been trying to find the entire Olympics. So it's who's to say, they don't just like go to that in the second and then it's like, okay, yeah, this is probably over by now. So I don't know. I think it'll be a decent game. I do think the US will win.
So I'm trying to figure out and finding, thank God for like NBA.com and such, because trying to find the stats for these these teams and such. So I was trying to look at who's taking threes because the 3-pointer is absolutely the equalizer in these Olympics. And in the Olympics so far for France, Wemby takes the most by far for this team. He takes
Fournier make the most.
He takes 6 a game. Fournier makes the most. He makes 1.8 per game. Wembanyama makes 1.6. He's only shooting 26%. So Fournier is shooting 35%. Batum is taking the third most on the team, but he's only making 30. So these guys have not got unlocked from the 3-point line quite yet.
Yeah, but that's the thing with the one game Elam is
yes.
Someone could just have a night, it could just happen.
So what I wonder is if Kerr and the coaches look at this game and they go, okay, we're gonna stop Fournier. Like Fournier is not going to get any looks, and that's going to be our goal, is to make sure that he doesn't get hot. And then you kind of leave it, do you want Batum shooting? Yeah, he's going to make some. You definitely want Wemby shooting. Like I said, Wemby's kind of feeling these moments, and he's not a good 3-point shooter yet at this stage.
Yeah, no.
And I think they're going to give him some opportunities to do so. But, if he does make 1 or 2, that crowd's going to get into it. I just think that Serbia played like a near perfect game, and there was enough lapses defensively for Team USA that just played right into their hands. And look, let's not downplay Jokic's ability to be a magnet to some of the defense, like you said. That's just because he's so good, and that's the guy that they don't want to beat them. But that also makes him. That's also why he's so good, is because he makes those passes. Yeah, like dude had I think he only had 5 rebounds, but he had something like 11 or 12 assists. Mm-hmm. That's amazing from his position.
So good.
All right, real quick. Steph Curry, obviously his best game. It just makes me laugh because there's still so many haters out there who just don't like the Warriors. So
I didn't see one mean tweet about Steph, man. Your algorithm is
it's not. I didn't see them as far as people hating on Steph, but it's just oh, finally he makes a shot or whatever. It's just funny. But do you sense that this experience for these guys leads to anything in the future? Because clearly they love playing with each other, but in this NBA, it is much harder to create the teams that you want out of stuff like this, right? Because Steph is what he could sign a new deal, or he can add more years to his current deal. What, next year? LeBron has a 1-1. KD, I don't know what KD is. It's like if these guys decided hey, let's make a run. It's all play for the Warriors, because I don't think LeBron's going to be able to get Steph to the Lakers. let's all play for the Warriors. It's almost impossible to do so with the CBA rules.
But
like, there's no way, right? Like
no, I mean, I think technically, like, you could do it. It just would put your future. It would just make your future suck, and then it would only be for like a year. But you could do it, right? Like 3 guys that make 50. What's the salary cap? I forget the salary. But I'm saying is I think you could do it because, like, say like LeBron just outright signs, and then like the Warriors trade, some heavy salary pieces like Wiggs for and company to Phoenix for Kevin Durant. Like, I think it could work financially. I just don't think that your supporting pieces would be that good. It would be all those vets taking the 1 year, $3 million deal, and you hope that like Eric Gordon's one of them.
Yeah. What about Draymond? Draymond would be really sad.
Yeah, I could even be on that team. I don't even know.
All right, so Team USA women, they play in the medal round starting tomorrow, very early in the morning, 8:30 in the morning for us. Their side, I think they play Australia. And what's interesting about their side of the bracket is that the team, like I was looking at the quarterfinals, and the team that was the 3-0 in Group 1 was Spain, and they lost to Belgium, who was in the Team USA's group and was 1-2. So that whole thing kind of got flipped upside down, and now you have Team USA against Australia. Australia was 2-1 in Group B. And Team USA obviously 3-0. Team USA also had the best plus minus, or what does PD stand for?
Point differential.
Point differential. And so they play Australia, and then on the other side it is France and Belgium, and France was also 2-1 in Australia's group, and like I said, Belgium was 1-2 in the US's group. So this thing is really laid out for Team USA to win as well. Maybe with less drama than what we saw today for the men's. But what have you seen so far from the Team USA women as far as adjustments? Or I don't know how closely you're watching those games, but it's really the Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson show. Like, just the two of them together are just kind of ridiculous. They're like a wrecking machine together.
Yeah. I'm still 2 behind. I think last time we recorded, I was 2 behind. So that means I've only watched 1 because then another one happened, or I've watched 2 and another 2 happened. But I know that they made a starting lineup change, and they changed Diana Taurasi out for Jackie Young, which I think was really smart. And it's not anything on Diana. I just think it would make more sense, honestly, for her to like be the stabilizing piece of a second unit, just being so savvy. And I haven't seen. Did you watch the Nigeria game?
I got to watch some of it, but I wasn't watching it as closely as I watched some of the other games.
Because I would wonder like how Diana looked in that second unit, but I mean they killed them, so I would assume that it was good. But but I mean I think it's clear that the USA women's team doesn't have to worry about 2028 like I feel like the men's team does. They have LeBron and Kevin Durant, right? Like they're good, and then they'll have Steph when Clark is ready to play too. Like they have the best players in the WNBA on the Team USA, so I think they'll be fine. And they've been dominant. And yeah, I mean, I think the Jackie Young addition to the starting lineup was it was a smart move. Again, I haven't seen how it plays out, but you just think defensively what she's able to bring. I think that it was a smart move as well. I wasn't sure if they were going to do it, but there's even argument. No, I think Chelsea Gray is the best point guard, so I think she should remain in there. But I know people were asking for like a Sabrina at the top, but I think Chelsea.
Well, okay. So what's interesting is I don't know if you listen to the Athletic Women's podcast, women's basketball podcast, but Zena and Chantel had an interesting conversation about the Aces lineup that they went with.
Yeah.
So Kelsey, Asia, and who's the third? Is
Jackie?
It's great. Is it okay?
It's Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray, right?
Okay, so they went to the all Aces lineup. And you know what happens if they do that? I think Sabrina is the one that's going to lose minutes if Kelsey Plum is going to play a little bit more in that kind of lineup, because the last game, so Sabrina only had 6 minutes, and then Lloyd had 9 minutes, and those were the only 2 players that did not get double-digit minutes.
Wow.
So which is a little bit interesting, and because Diana did not start, but she still got 15 minutes, almost as many as Jackie Young got. So yeah, interesting lineup adjustments that they've made so far. It's just awesome when they put in Brittany Griner, because the entire dynamic of the team just changes.
Yeah, she's like the wild card.
It's just insane. You just basically, you take out these really active, athletic bigs, and you just put Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the middle, and you go, okay, now we're playing through Kareem. Like, that's what Brittany looks like compared to everybody else on the court. So that's awesome. The other thing I found that was really interesting, and this is not really Team USA related, but as we learn more about the WNBA, I guess the rules for the WNBA and why there are some international players missing from their teams this year is you basically have to choose one or the other. Like, are you going to play, locally for your team and tournaments and stuff, or are you going to play in the league? And so some of the players, they were saying, chose, because it is an Olympic season, so they chose to play in tournaments for their countries, and thus they had to sit out their WNBA season. Like, I guess the WNBA makes you choose, what you're going to do for that particular year. I found that interesting because I didn't know, and which makes sense because the women's league is I guess technically less international, because if those players aren't playing, but there are responsibilities for these players and their teams, whereas Luka is not going to be like, yeah, guys, sorry, I'm taking the year off because I'm going to play with my country to make sure that we make the Olympics.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, I'm 90% sure you make more money in Europe playing basketball than you do currently for the WNBA. And I think this is all just like can be resolved with the schedule change that I think is bound to happen. Like, I don't think the WNBA will forever be a summer league, basically, like in terms of where it's placed right now. Like, I think the timing and of the WNBA only benefits one group, and that's the NBA, is that doesn't like conflict. But I of course understand that like it made sense because the WNBA viewership wasn't like that high, so that putting it against the NBA would be like a bad move. So you want to have it when the NBA is not. But I think that we'll start to see, not that they're mirroring each other in timeline of when both leagues start, but I think the WNBA will get pushed back a little. Maybe it starts in July, or maybe it starts in like in July, maybe, to then account for some of these players, because a lot of the time, like these players will complete their WNBA season and then they'll go get the second salary in Europe and go start playing over there as well. So you're basically doing basketball for the full year, because the WNBA is what, like 4 or 5 months, 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
It's like half of what the NBA is. So you have all that downtime of like basically unemployment. So it makes sense that a lot of these players go play overseas. And I think that when the revenue increases, when they're going to start getting paid more off the new CBA or off the TV media rights deal, whatever's going to change that, like, I don't think we'll see that as much, because they'll start making a lot more money. But for the time being, I'm even forgetting some of the salaries, but it's pretty crazy. A professional women's athlete making under 100 grand just is like doesn't make is pretty crazy to even think about. So I think that that's going to change pretty soon, and it's going to change by a lot. So I don't think we'll see that, and I think that issue won't change itself until the scheduling thing, because it's really just like an Olympic during like the Olympic year. Like I think there were like 2 players or 3 players that actually chose to stay in the home country, and it was the Liberty shooter, the Johannes. She stayed, and I believe her name is Gabby on the Seattle Storm. Has not played for the Storm this year. She's on Team France. So yeah, I think that it sucks, and I think that it's unfair because one, like you make more money in Europe, but two, you're probably have the best chance, maybe like super long term, to make more money in the WNBA, and it's like better for your brand or something more competitive. I don't know. It's in America, so I don't know. But yeah.
All right. Before we get out of here, we do have to talk a little bit about the Lauri Markkanen thing.
Do we have to?
Just quickly. I think Warriors fans are rightfully disappointed in the
very
outcome,
rightfully disappointed.
But I don't think it surprised anybody, right? Like you
No.
weren't surprised to see how they were. You actually said this pretty early on, which is Danny Ainge is not there to help other teams. He's there to, make make his team get the best deal.
Just swindler, man.
And if
you got a first round pick for Royce O'Neal, think about that.
And if that is the case, the Warriors were seemingly not going to give up a particular player or two who may have been, and maybe Danny Ainge doesn't even do the deal if Podziemski is in it. But it's very clear that the Warriors were like, okay, Podziemski is kind of off limits. But who knows? They may have gotten to like deeper in, and they're like, okay, well, what about Podziemski? What about this first round pick? What about this pick swap? What about all these different things? I guess my thing is, the problem. I think the overall problem is just the expectation of what your team has done in the past to move heaven and earth to open up spots for players who desperately want to come play for your team. And that's just not the current ecosystem of the NBA. A lot of that is because of the new CBA. It's just harder. You go that far over the cap and you lose a bunch of different things that are there to benefit your team in free agency. I have a problem just going like, oh yeah, like they could have easily made that deal. Like I know some fans are. I never sensed that this was going to happen. It just seemed too hard and too technical from the get-go, unless the Warriors are like, you can have everything, just give us Markkanen.
Yeah. I mean, like I get it from the sense of like if we were to complete said trade, like it probably wasn't going to be Podziemski and Moody or Kuminga and Moody. Like I would imagine that they wanted all three and maybe weren't even going to budge unless they got all three. Like I just can, like, again, Danny Ainge getting a first round pick for Royce O'Neal and then having the summer he had with trading Mitchell and Gobert. The trade he got for Gobert is even talked about as like one of the better swindling trades.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he would have swindled us, but there's only like, and I understand that from the GM's perspective. It's like, what would you want us to do? Do you really want us to get rid of all this stuff? And it's just, I think from a fan, a lot of the times the fans do black and white. Did it happen or did it not happen? Like not really like the gray area of like why it didn't happen. And I think a lot of the times, fans can think whatever they want. It's their right to, but I think that you can only do the gray area so many times before it's like, okay, our guy's just really not getting the job done, right? Like Farhan Zaidi on the Giants side. It's like, okay, we just keep getting second place, but they're trying so hard. And look, they were second place. And he chose not to come here, not because we didn't match the offer, not because we didn't offer him more money. It's because he didn't want to come to San Francisco because we don't have a competitive team. Like that's at some point, the gray area just has to be like black and white. It's like, did it happen or did it not happen? Right. And I think that, Dunleavy, I've given him some gray area stuff, but I think that there is just a very blanket, like, dude, you have the greatest player that you'll ever have. You got to maximize him. You got to give him talent. And I think we could both look at this lineup right now and say, where do you think they finish in the West? And I would be surprised if either of us confidently had them over 8.
You know what it also is? It's Draymond because, well, I'm not even being negative towards him. It is his style of play alongside Steph. Those guys believe in it. So if you were to say, like you just said, we need to put better players around him, you have to get rid of Draymond. And then you're trying to build a team with a system that guys are going to sort of have to get used to, and then you don't know if they work well in this system.
Wait, why do you have to get rid of Draymond? Is it you're saying players don't want to come play with Draymond?
No, what I'm saying is if you want to bring in bigger names, Draymond makes 25 million. So he would have to be like, you can, if you want to get two guys to come play with Steph, one of those guys probably can't be Draymond because he makes too much money.
Yeah, I understand that.
Because
but
our LeBron and KD scenario, like Draymond is
I
out.
guess would have to go. Yeah.
Or, somebody who, I guess an older player, a KD and then a somebody else. Is Draymond the right guy to play next to those guys? Because then if he is, he's got to play center, and then you don't have a center, and then you can't shot block on the other end. So there are little things by saying Draymond is your guy. It makes it harder, I think, to just break it down and say we're just gonna build this thing around Steph, because you kind of have to build it around Steph and Draymond, which then limits your ability to add the players that you want.
Yeah, but I think the argument to that is like, well, Lauri Markkanen and Paul George both did not need a Draymond in order to get them, one of them, right? And it just didn't happen. So I see what you're saying. If you want to go like big fish hunting, like multiple guys, then yeah, Draymond will work. But I think we're just asking for one. We're just asking for a number two, right? And Draymond.
Okay, but then going back to your argument about what the fans expect about how, you have one of the greatest players and you're not building a championship team around him. Even if they got Markkanen, Draymond, and Steph together are not a championship team. They're more.
Yeah, it's a better chance. You're probably saying top 5 because Markkanen's the 5, and then you could play Draymond with Wiggs and I don't know who would be the number 2. It's a better 5. I'd probably say that team's top 5 in the West.
But if you really wanted to build the championship team around Steph, I don't think you can do that with Draymond on the roster. You would need Markkanen and KD, or you would need Markkanen and another really, really good player
to build a bona fide championship team. Yes, to build a contending roster, which is I think what we want. I wouldn't say that. I think they can compete. I think it was like you see it today with Steph, man. It's like look what this guy can still do. This guy could have went for 40 if he wanted to, and it's just like he can't do that consistently on the Warriors. It's because he just gets guarded like he's the only one that matters. You just needed someone. You just needed someone.
But to my point, they play a certain style with Draymond on the court, and if you play Draymond, you cannot play another guy who can't shoot. So that
Markkanen, whoa,
you can do.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, but it's Markkanen, but then you can't play Kuminga.
Well, Kuminga would be gone. And if he wasn't, then maybe you can. 2 non-shooters isn't the worst. They've done 2 non-shooters.
But then we're going to go back to Steph being double teamed because other guys are going to be left open. So I'm just saying that if to build a championship level team, Draymond is probably off of that team just because of the fit. Not that I want him gone. I'm just saying, to sort of fulfill the fan base fantasy of, we got to chase one more chip with Steph still here. I don't think you can have Steph and Draymond together and say we need one more guy and we're a championship contender. I don't know who that guy is that you could say that about, unless something falls from the sky and I can't even think of who would even be available to where it would make the Warriors a top 2 option in the West.
Top 2 is
who could fall from the sky and be available for the Warriors to trade for, and you would pick the Warriors over.
Yeah, I mean,
Minnesota,
I think all eyes are probably in Milwaukee, but just see if they fail, quickly.
You know what? Giannis might be the one guy that would be possibly available, because everyone else, you're talking about Luka, you're talking about Jokic. those guys are not going anywhere. Even LeBron, to an extent, you put LeBron and Steph and Draymond together on the Warriors, are they a top 2 team in the West? I'm not sure. Like, they'll be really good and they'll be really entertaining.
I think Anthony Davis would, not that he's available, but I think that would be a top 2 team.
He's an interesting one, but you would worry about him injury wise for sure. But yeah, I mean that's an interesting project or an interesting study, is to go Steph and Draymond and then one other guy. Are they the favorite? I think it would be
very hard to be favorite for sure, unless you got Giannis, right? But I don't even think the favorite totally matters in the West. I think the favorite matters in the East a little more because it's just so top heavy. But the West, would you have said Minnesota as a Western Conference finalist? Would you have said, like, this year it's probably, probably going to be like OKC in Minnesota, but it just feels like things could change pretty easily in the West. Everything's so tight, like, again, the Warriors were the 6th seed that played the Kings, that felt like a few, not that far away from going to the Western Conference Finals. They didn't even have a number 2, like I know that's 2 years ago. That's a different story of where this team is at. A lot's happened since then, but even then, like, they didn't have a number 2. And imagine if they had a number 2, we could be talking about another finals team. But
they didn't have a number 2. They didn't even have a number 5. They were starting JaMychal Green in that series. So that shows you how little depth that they could even put on that roster together. And that's with Draymond, Steph, Clay. I guess Jordan Poole was in that series.
Wiggs.
So you're talking about how strapped you are with that roster, that they didn't even have a player who they could put in the 5th spot in the starting lineup to make them, the team that they were the year prior. So it's just an interesting exercise, because I feel like the Warriors fans desperately want to see what if with Steph, and the realistic scenario is this is kind of what it's going to be based on how the economics of the NBA work.
I think that if Stephen Curry leaves the Warriors, I don't see it likely, but I think that would be like the legacy of Dunleavy, of course. Like, Clay left, and we're a little bit of setting up for failure once Bob left, because you knew that it was starting to tumble. But if Steph leaves, he's put it out there. I don't think he will. He's got too much of a family established in the Bay Area and businesses and everything. But he kind of teased it out there that he's like, I want to win, right? And if I don't sense like any type of momentum to even try and win, that, like, that's kind of what I got out of it. If I know you're not trying, and like it doesn't feel like we've made any progress, then I don't know, right? And that I kind of feel like they haven't made any progress. They've gotten 3 guys that I feel like are great signings, but don't matter if you don't get Lauri or Paul George.
I mean, you have 3 shots at the draft to find, the next guy. Like, if you put Franz on this Warriors team, you're probably feeling a little bit better about your future than you are with Kuminga.
Yeah, but Curry doesn't care about that. I know what you're saying, like, oh, we could have gotten Halliburton, we could have gotten Franz, we could have gotten Trey Murphy, but it's like, I mean, Steph's don't care about that. Steph's like, okay, what are you doing now? And
no, but I think that the future will be, to him, the future is brighter if you have playmakers and guys who you believe are going to take that leap. We're still unsure about Kuminga. Moody hasn't gotten a chance. And is Wiseman going to be in the league this year? I guess he will be.
Yeah.
Huh?
2-year deal with Indiana.
Yeah, that's his 3rd team already in his very short career.
He sucks.
So that is, if some of those things fall a little differently, if they could trade for Siakam in last year, which is a thing that we had talked about, then maybe Steph's idea of what his future is like is a little different than it is today, where he's looking at the same roster that we're looking at and going like, it's nice. It's not it's not a bottom 15 roster, but it's also not something where I'm coming in and thinking that, we're going to win the championship. And he hasn't been able to think like that for a couple years. And then they did win the championship that one time. So, anyway, so it's just something that I found interesting when it came to all of these questions about, oh, you got this guy and you need to, one last chance. Like, how can you do that? That is basically my question. The CBA, the way that they did it, made it almost sure that the Warriors were not going to be able to do it in their current form unless they stripped it down and tried to figure out how to put it back together.
I just think it's being risky. It's taking risks that I feel like we haven't seen Dunleavy do. That I'm trying to think of like Myers. I can't think of off the top of my head.
Pods, Kuminga, and 3 first rounders for Lauri, you would have done it, or whatever the highest value trade that they.
It would have depended what the highest one is, but even like trade deadline last year, nothing happened. It's like, why didn't anything happen? If it sounded like stuff might have been on the table, and it's just, I feel like it's just taking risks, whether it be, like it's just stuff that we'd probably think about and be like, I don't think so. Like, I don't think that would work, but it's just like
it was kind of risky to trade for CP. They just didn't get anything back.
It was dumb. Like, because at the time I was like, okay, like, maybe this could work, addition by subtraction. Jordan Poole could not be on this team any longer if you wanted to keep Draymond Green. But even looking at what they gave up, I know we've talked about it before. Jordan Poole, Ryan Rollins, is that his name? Ryan Rollins, the guy who sucks. A second round pick for the Warriors. Patrick Baldwin Jr., our first round pick that year, and a 2030 first round pick. That's what they gave up for Chris Paul. That's a lot of stuff. So calculated risks. I don't know. Risks that don't. I don't know. It's just like sometimes you just gotta be black and white, man. This current guy's not getting the job done, and he was set up to fail, but he is failing, and I think we got to be a little harder on the guy.
Okay, but here's the other thing, which is you have a boss who says we are always going to be competitive. So what does that mean? Does that mean you are fighting for a playoff spot every year? Is that competitive? Because if that is your goal, that is the team that Dunleavy built. Joe Lacob doesn't want to strip the team down and go through trust the process moments. Like, that's not his style. So in a way, Dunleavy's job is tied to stretching out Steph Curry and Draymond Green, not Clay anymore, but those guys as far as he can, while then trying to build sort of this undercurrent of younger players to hopefully replace them. I can't imagine how it happens. Like, San Antonio was the rare team that was able to do that, right? Miami has had their downs, but post LeBron and post D Wade and post Bosch, they struggled. But if your boss is like, nope, we're never rebuilding, we're always going to be competitive, that's just how it works. That handicaps you as well, because it makes your choices in what you can do, it limits them. So the Warriors are never going to tear it down. Joe Lacob lived through, I guess, 2020 and 2019 and was just, not having it. Or 2020, I guess, was the only bad year that they had. But he was like, nope, not doing that again. And so you're going to have a team that, yeah, they're gonna be 500 or better. But what does that even mean in this day and age?
Yeah, I mean, they ducked the luxury tax and they didn't get better. So the results are gonna show. And I hope that there's a change of opinion over there, because that just sounds like politician. It just sounds like sneaky, shady politics. Like, we're never going to be successful, but I'm just trying to buy another 4-year term here. I'm not going to piss off the boss. I'm just going to like make it seem like I'm trying. And then maybe you'll have a long career as a GM. Atlanta sees that this guy listens to the boss. Let's bring him in. He's just going to do what we say. So Dunleavy, man, legacy is yours. I think you suck, but I'd love to be proved wrong.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm just not screwing this thing up. Like, we're gonna. I think that's part of his job, probably, just to not screw up
But is he? Isn't
make
he?
them worse.
Isn't he? The fear of doing that is coming true.
Joe Lacob went on TK's podcast and says they're better this year than they were last year. So he's happy.
Joe Lacob also drafted James Wiseman.
Hey, I liked we were on Wiseman Island for a while. We're not on it. All right. That's enough. We went a little longer than I thought, but I thought that was a fun exercise at the end to think about who you could even bring on to this current team to make them great. All right. So we'll figure out. I'm not sure what our schedule will be, but the NBA. When is basketball training camp? Do you even know?
Season usually starts in October, so it's probably like September.
All right. So according to NBA.com, it looks like the Abu Dhabi games of 2024, Celtics and Nuggets, October 4th and 6th. So my guess is training camp starts a week or two before then. So yeah, we got August, September. We had a good 2.5 months probably before these teams are getting back together. And that's why I was very thankful for Team USA basketball. And then we got the second half of the WNBA. So we may not be back every week, but we will definitely do some shows in between now and the start of the season. So, but we'll get to them when we can. All right. So, by the way, Rod and I, we want winners. We're back every weekend from here until the end of the football season. So it is football season around here at BSPN. All right. That is it from here. For Brian, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.